All right. Good morning. Actually, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for those of you who are here or internationally. Welcome to our Leveraging Up, Your Voice, Your Story, Your Impact. And today we have a special guest and his message even more special. So I'd like to welcome to the stage, am I pronouncing it correctly? Mykal Olson from the Life Forge. She's got an amazing message that I need you to be leaning into. So,
Thank
Mykal,
you. Thank you very much.
you're welcome, Mykal. What I'd like you to do is, could you start out by just telling us a little bit about yourself? What's the passion behind Life Forge, and what inspired you to take this on?
Okay. Let me start by letting people know my name is Mykal Olson. My business is the Life Forge. It came about because of a silent epidemic of addiction. Now, you wouldn't think that it's silent because we hear a lot about it, but it's silent because 40 million Americans suffer from substance use disorder, but fewer than 7% actually take action to resolve that problem. And I think it's even lower for men in particular because we like to hold it within ourselves and not talk about it with anyone else. We want to solve the problem ourselves. The reason it's a passion for me is my struggles with addiction took me from having a really strong corporate position in a company, subsidiary of a $3 billion company. I had high aspirations. I had a wife, a home, and 3 beautiful daughters. And yet that resulted in my ending up in prison. And as I'm sitting in prison, having destroyed my family, my career, all those dreams I had to figure out what I was going to do with my future. And because of the effect that I had on my family, especially my children, I decided what I need to do is try and help other fathers avoid doing what I did to my family. And so I decided I wanted to be able to tell my story to hopefully reach people that otherwise wouldn't reach out to look for help and say, I've done this. I've accomplished it. I know how to do it. I can show you too. And that's how this came to be.
Wow, so powerful, Mykal. You know, the experiences that we have in our lives is what, it's not who we are. It's just something that happened. And to see that you've really taken a stand for opening that up for others so that they can avoid doing it. Priceless.
We must turn our pain into power.
You know, I heard that reminds me of a quote. A friend of mine said, you know, Mamie, when you have a passion or compassion, the pain that we've gone through becomes our credential. And, you know, I take a look at the story that you just started to tell me, Mykal, and your pain has become your credential. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about who you are, what are you doing, and how can we support you?
Well, the first thing that I found out when I was in prison is I found a Toastmasters group in the prison. And my first speech that I gave, they said, you can really paint a picture with words. So I decided the first thing I need to do is to speak to people, to share that story, and paint that picture so that other people can feel what I went through, but more importantly, the hope of what I can offer that they can get out of it. Because there was a time I had no hope at all. So I figured that I would become a speaker. Eventually, I had to come up with what was the process I used to overcome it. Then I took that process and I wrote it into a book so that I can teach that process. And then I have a business where I do speaking and I do coaching, and I want to help people through that process. But what I really am looking forward here is to make contacts with people where I can speak. I can get on stages and I can reach out to people and let them know about this. So anybody that can provide me a contact, a way that I can get on a stage, no matter how small or how big, and I can tell my story to more people and reach out to them.
I love it. You know, we're here today because I really do believe that our voice and the stories that we can tell, and I'm going to say this because this is the lesson that I learned, that our story could be the key that unlocks the prison that someone else is afraid to open. And
Yes, and let's not think about prison as a physical thing. Prison is that mental and emotional state. One thing I like to say about addictions, addiction really isn't about the substance. There are addictions that have no substance involved, gambling, sex addiction, other ones like that. Addiction is a symptom. The real problem lies in the scars that we have inside us that have not been healed. And we need to reach those scars and heal them.
that's powerful, Mykal. So if you were looking at that, I'm so glad that you actually clarified that prison. That prison it's not just the physical prison, it's the mental prison, it's the mindset prison that we put up for ourselves. And sometimes we don't even realize we're in at this time. And if you could reach out to our audience and really talk to them, who are you looking for? What can we do to, I know that you said get speakers and get on speaking stages and things like that. Is there something else that you'd like to tell our listeners that could help them move into the direction towards where you have been?
Well, the first thing that I wanted to mention is I'm specifically looking for young fathers. Now, that doesn't mean that what I share couldn't be used by women, but primarily the way that I've stated everything is to be able to reach the psyche of a man so that I can tell them this is something that will work for you because it worked for me. And just a little story as to how this came about that I did this is when I was at my lowest point and I was sitting in prison trying to figure out what I was going to be doing. I was actually listening to a recorded sports motivational speech. And he was speaking all that fiery speech about grinding every day. And it made me mad. Because there's no way I could have ground my life any further into the dirt than I had already done. And people with addiction are constantly grinding their lives down. And it came to me what I wanted to do was to build it back up. And so the vision, instead of grinding, was a forge where you create objects, where you make something out of raw materials. And that's what I did my process on, is how to become a creator of myself and my future. So that's what I'm looking for. And now if anybody out there has an organization that speaks primarily to young men and young fathers, they can help me reach those people to bring my message to them And then I can maybe find some of those silent sufferers.
Whoa, silent sufferers, Mykal. That is for me, when I listen to you say the silent sufferers, you have described men, because they are the ones who live in silent suffering. And so, listeners, lean in, because Mykal is appealing to those, learn from the lessons that he's been, and see where, and the hope, see where you can be, and the hope that's out there. That's what I got from what you just mentioned, Mykal. I notice you have an amazing looking book right next to you. Would you lift it up and share it with us?
It's called Life Forge. You can find it on my website. You can find it on Amazon. But you can see the picture. There's a man there. He's working with metal in the forge. And that's the image I wanted to portray for men. You can work on yourselves. You can overcome this. There's a process that you can have available to you that will help you to overcome your issues so that you don't suffer. And where you don't really recognize at this time is your family is suffering too. And you don't want that to happen. You don't want it. You don't want your future generations to have these problems just carry on. Let's stop it now.
You heard the man. Let's stop it now, guys. Let's stop it now. Mykal, how can our audience reach out to you and support your mission?
Easiest way is to reach out on my website, thelifeforge.com. That's all one word, The Life Forge. And then when you get to the website, you can find my phone number, you can find my LinkedIn, my Facebook, all those things at the website.
I surely am going to take a look at that website, Mykal, because I believe that the message that you have impacts so many, and we're not even aware of it. We're not even aware of it. And so, listeners, The Life Forge. If you'd like to, not if, when you are ready, when you want to take that step forward, please help Mykal support his cause, his mission, and his vision, because there are people out there that need his help. And all you have to do is say, hey, man, I saw this guy on a podcast, and he was talking about some of the things that I think you could benefit. That's all we need you to do. And Mykal, this is one promise to you, okay? When we're done with the podcast, I'd like to talk with you to see if there's some organizations that we're connected with that could do just that, get you on a stage so that you can take your vision, your mission, and the vows that you made to not allow this to happen again to the next level.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. So, if you could give advice to our audience one more time, what would that be?
The number one thing to understand is the situation we find ourselves in, we created or allowed to happen. But because we had that ability, we had that power, we also have the power to change and to transform ourselves into something better.
I say amen to that. Thank you, Mykal. For those of you listening in, thank you so much for being here. Remember now, your voice, your story, your impact, that is what it takes to leverage up. And for me, I'm going to say a very big thank you to you, Mykal, because you truly are leveraging up. The lessons you've learned in your life is lessons that we don't have to suffer and go through. And so if you're willing to lean in, guys, this is the time to lean in. And yes, I do mean guys. So for now, we're going to say goodbye. And it's just goodbye for now, because Mykal, I do want to continue this conversation, because I believe that the message that you have is what people are looking for. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.